Hello, hello. It is Astro Coach or Admiral Sarah, depending on how you associate with me. That's fine. Either way is good. Astro Coach Sarah because I'm an astrologer and a personal development leadership coach. Admiral Sarah because I'm very much into Star Trek and nerd things. So, whichever. So let's talk about the upcoming new moon, sorry, full moon in Libra. So I'm kind of shifting to only doing new and full moon content on YouTube at this point. I thought I could do weekly content. Unfortunately, I have huge deadlines for big, huge projects and need to invest time into those right now. However, in the description box below are links to the Awakening Spirit Collective, for one, which is a paid platform where you can pay and be a member of that platform. And there's not only me doing astrology weekly on there, but also multiple other practitioners doing all the kinds of things like chakra work, yoga work, meditations, visualization exercises, all kinds of different practitioners on there that you can also work with. So there's that option. There's also a link to sign up for my e-newsletter, which I just started publishing this last week. Because I'm basically shifting myself off of social media. I don't feel like social media aligns for me anymore. So occasionally I'll post on TikTok. So if you want to follow me there, I kind of post more like, how this astrology played out in my life, or what I'm observing in astrology, and connecting the dots and things like that. But a bulk of my content is either going to be here, the Awakening Spirit Collective, or my e-newsletter. Or you can just, hire me and let me read your chart and tell you what's going on. That stuff is down there too. I am still working on a couple of other programs and courses coming up. So stay tuned for that. Information should be coming up in the next couple of weeks here. So this full moon happens on April 1st, April Fool's Day. But also Rabbit Rabbit, you're gonna want to say Rabbit Rabbit first of every month. Because rabbits are fertility, they're good luck, they're abundant, all of those things. This is also the full moon right before I think Easter, because it's the first full moon after the spring equinox. Um, so there's that happening. What else is going on? Mercury is direct, so yay. I think the good news about this full moon is that Venus, who's the ruler of the full moon in Libra, is in her other home sign of Taurus. And I think that between that and Mars, and Mercury still being in Pisces for this full moon is kind of going to soften the full moon. Um, because otherwise, if Mercury and Mars were in Aries, which is where they'll be by mid-April, I think this would be a hell spicier full moon. Libra, just because Libra is balanced doesn't mean Libra is always calm. There's a lot of things that happen when planets are in Libra, because Libra is, in a way, like if it doesn't see the balance, it's almost trying to show us where the imbalance is. So sometimes we can see heated things happen. I think it was a eclipse in Libra in October. Was this 2023 or 4? I cannot remember where, and whenever the Hamas thing happened. I'm not good with international things, but I remember there being an event. I want to say it was the Hamas event, or something like that, that began with the Libra eclipse in the October of 2024, I think it was. If it wasn't 4, it was 3. I can't remember. And so Libra is, yeah, calm, yeah, indecisive, but also Libra is can bring some spice to the table. It can bring and it's sort of, let me show you where it's not balanced. Let me show you where it's not working. And I feel like this full moon could really show us that, because of the fact that we have 5 planets at the time of this full moon. We will have 5 planets, um, meaning Neptune, the Sun, Saturn, Chiron. Um, I guess Venus has moved on, so 4 technically. There is a dwarf planet called Eris. I don't talk about that a lot, but that is a spicy feminine planet. Um, she's in Aries as well. Um, And by middle of April, as I said, we're going to have a pretty potent stellium. By the time we get to the Aries new moon on April 17th, there's going to be a mighty amount of planets in Aries. So, one thing I have already noticed in the last couple of days is people are spicier and they're more snippy snappy with their words, not only to other people, but to themselves. So please be conscientious of how you're talking to yourself. I am guilty of this. I had a complete self breakdown yesterday. Um, snapped at somebody and then beat the crap out of myself verbally for my bad behavior. So I went and cleaned it up today. It's all good. But what I'm saying is have a little compassion, have a little grace. Also, take responsibility and go clean up your mess if you make a mess with your words. But I have been noticing that people are getting a little bit more, if you think about that tongue as a knife, they're getting a little more cutty with their words. And that's going to continue, particularly once Mercury moves into Aries towards the middle of April. And certainly once Mars gets there, things are really going to heat up. So let's talk about things heating up. If you deal with dehydration, even if you don't deal with dehydration, you may want to think about hydration. You don't necessarily need to use hydration drink packets. You can always just put a little pinch of salt in your water, put a little pinch of sugar in your water. You don't have to overdo it. Or you can do like a citrus mint tea. If you prefer to do it that way, I prefer like a spearmint citrus tea. That's one of my favorites for the summertime. It tastes really good iced after a walk in the hot sun. Um, you can do things like that. You can do different hydration things, but also, be conscientious of like the food you're eating. Are you eating, fruit that has hydration, like cucumbers and melon and, things like that that provide hydration because things are going to get heated. And when we're overheated, we are dehydrated. Be aware of like how you're layering your clothes, for goodness sakes, like things like that. That you might want to be just a little extra conscientious of your body's temperature because when we're overheated, let's just say you're overheated and you're hangry and all of the things, you haven't nourished yourself, you're going to be spicier, you're going to be edgier, you're going to be, all of the things. So, it's just an opportunity to be more conscientious. So if you catch yourself, like I did yesterday when I was hangry, when I was probably overheated because I was wearing too heavy of a coat and probably should have come upstairs and gotten some water before I approached the situation, but that's just not how it went. Um, anyway, so let's take a look at the chart. Let's get into, I got some oracle cards. I'm going to do kind of a quickie here, just to, give you guys the lowdown. But also, so this full moon is happening on April 1st. It's happening at 9-ish, 9:15 p.m. Central Time. So um, for many people, it could be uh, April 2nd. Um, but for many of us, um, it'll be April 1st. So things could be weird just because it's freaking April 1st. Okay, it's an April 1st full moon. That's fun. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at the chart, kind of look at it and all that. So I'm posting this video March 25th. If you are listening to this the 25th, 26th, 27th, take a note of what happens the 25th, 26th, 27th. That it might be something that is important by the time we get to June, July, and August, particularly July. So you're going to want to take a note of what happens around the 25th, 26th, 27th, because it may show up again in July. Just a note. And if you're in the Awakening Spirit Collective, I explained why. Um, anyway, and if you also want a chart reading on that particular transit and the pattern that is surfacing around it, links are below for that. So let's look at this full moon. I actually really like this full moon because it peaks at 21:12. So 1, 2, wait a minute. Sorry, I read that wrong. I said that wrong. I said that wrong. It peaks at 12:21, so 1221 palindrome number. Also, Jupiter is at 1551, so there's a palindrome there too, 1551 of Cancer at the time of this full moon. So if you look over on the um, right hand, wait a minute, whatever side I've got magnified. Right hand side? Right hand side, you can see Sarah's series in Taurus. Venus is into Taurus, which is good. Chiron still in Aries. Sun at 12, Saturn at 5, Neptune at 2. But then you see Mars in 23 Pisces, Mercury at 14 Pisces, North Node at 8 Pisces. So, good news is we're almost out of the Mercury post retrograde shadow. That will happen in a few days from here. Yeah, 14, I think it was 22 or 23. And then Mercury will move on and Mars will move on into Aries. So I like the fact that one, Venus is in Taurus. I actually kind of like the fact that Mars is in Pisces for this full moon, because it softens it just a little bit. Not a lot, not a lot, but just a little bit. I also think there's something to be said for this full moon being in Libra, where Saturn is exalted, but Saturn is in Aries where Saturn is at fall. So Saturn's not in his favorable position where that full moon is happening. This is one of those like bucket type charts where we've got like all of the planets in opposition of the full moon. So you're going to really want to feel into what's in balance, what is balanced and what is out of balance with this full moon. Is the world going to be balanced? Absolutely not. Look at everything on the right side of the chart versus the left side of the chart. The moon is on the left side of the chart. There's a the ascendant, the moon, and the south node. So this is not a balanced chart. Everything else is over on the, Pisces, Aries, Taurus area of the chart. Um, we also have Uranus at 28. I mean, the full moon is loosely squaring Jupiter. It will enter the full square of Jupiter after the full moon peaks. So we'll still be in the full moon energy vibe. Um, so yeah, that's not a tight square, but it's a square. It's about 3 degrees apart, almost four actually. Um, but there is that square happening. Um, we are going to start to see Uranus moving ahead because by the 26th of April, Uranus will enter Gemini. We have Hegea, which is the asteroid that represents healthcare. It represents healing, is at 29 of Gemini. So, Hegea is about to move into Cancer. Ceres is in Taurus. So we've got some feminine stuff to work with, right? Which I kind of like, um, because we are definitely in a pendulum shift, right? A paradigm shift from a patriarchal society to a matriarchal society. It won't go down without a fight, but it is happening. I'm also very aware of the fact that Christianity is really facing, I don't know if anybody follows the Duggar family. I used to follow their show all the time, but I don't know. I got kind of weirded out when their oldest son got arrested, and now another of their sons has been arrested for inappropriate behavior with children. And I think that this, because of the fact that Joe was arrested on the Pisces new moon right before Mercury went stationed direct, I think we're in for some real big secret stuff being revealed. I've already seen a bunch of stuff being revealed about the Duggar family. Um, and so one of their other show count, there was like the 17, 18, 19 kids and counting, and then there was the Counting On show has been removed from streaming services. Um, and so there's going to be a lot more coming out about, and which makes me kind of wonder in this moment as I'm looking at this chart, that kind of makes me wonder because the Duggars were in what is called the IBLP, which was what the Institute of Basic Life Principles or something weird like that. And they were homeschooled and they had to dress modestly and all of the things. And inherently, that's not wrong, but they took it too far, obviously, and now we have damaged children coming out of that. But it kind of makes me wonder if, because I have been hearing and know of people who experienced not only a very strict fundamentalist Christian upbringing, but also um, there were camps and programs, residential facilities for young people who were quote unquote troublemakers, were sent to various residential programs that were Christian based. And many of those now adults many of them are well into, drugs and alcohol. Some of them are not into drugs and alcohol, but they definitely know the damage that that residential facility, had on their life because the Bible was used as a weapon. Um, and the women were treated poorly. The women employees were treated poorly. So it kind of makes me wonder how much more of that kind of stuff is going to come out. I have had clients and friends and even relatives who have been, deconditioning and deprogramming from a fundamentalist upbringing or even a strict Christian upbringing since I started working as a coach. And I can tell you that many of them are still struggling to this day with a lot of the conditioning and the programming. And so but fear not, the pendulum is shifting. People are waking up ever since Neptune went into Aries this time around. I have seen more and more, people, coming out and talking about how strict their upbringing was and what it did to them and what they've had to do or work through to, break that conditioning, break that programming. And so it's a process. It is definitely a process to work through. However, I feel like this full moon could be, we're starting to already see like the tipping point of all of the things, right? Um, and so, no doubt we will see more of that. Um, and we'll see more of a shift in self-nurturing with Ceres, Ceres in Taurus, and subsequently Hygieia moving into Cancer. I think we'll see more of that of of the nurture shift, the nurturing shift happen for people. What I will say is that, if you feel like you don't love yourself, I can tell you that self-love is a process in and of itself. And there are days when you're not going to like yourself. Like I didn't like myself too much yesterday. But once I, cried about it and went and cleaned up my mess and apologized, I feel like a ton better. A ton. I'm not happy about what I did, but at least, I set the stage a different way, and had it shift the direction. So, um, there is that. So, keep in mind that Aries, this much Aries cut, surgery, blood, head, jaw, so headaches, headaches may be an indication of something's out of balance within your system. Like I said, the hydration and stuff like that. It could also mean that your system is, out of balance with something else. Maybe you need more mental stimulation. Maybe you need more exercise. Maybe you need to move your body. Maybe you need to get outside to kind of balance out your system. Um, what else was I going to say? If it doesn't feel like the clarity is there yet, it's okay. Again, Mercury's still in his post-retrograde shadow. Give it another week or two to, with Mercury finishing in Pisces, I feel like is the last kind of I'm done with that. Um, I'm done with that. I'm not going to acknowledge that anymore. I'm going to move forward from here on out. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are. And so, if there's something that you still talk about from your past and you're, let's just say in your 40s, because that's my age, maybe it's done. Maybe it's time to be done. We get it. We get it. We've all been traumatized in some way, shape, or form, right? It's time to be done. It's time to move on. It's time to take responsibility and be the person that you are here to be. We're all here for a unique purpose. Um, all in all, I like this full moon. I do feel like things are spicing up with, like current affair astrology or like current affair events and things like that. But I also feel like things are starting to shift and people are starting to um, disassociate with both the both the political parties, particularly in the US. I don't know much about other countries' politics, barely know enough about my own. But I do feel like people are disconnecting from it more and more and more. So, one of the big things with Neptune and Aries was we're going to war. Uranus moving into Gemini, we're going to war. Are we? Or are people going to say, hell no, I'm not participating? I feel like the hell no, people aren't going to participate thing is going to happen more and more and more. Are we going to be affected by that? However, yes, because gas prices and fuel prices and food and cost to ship things and shipping delays and um, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would say take this full moon as an opportunity to, because you may get something illuminated with Venus and Taurus. Taurus is our resources, our food, our money, our um, material possession resources, things like that. So I feel like yes, this full moon could illuminate vowels could illuminate where you're lacking in a resource, where you need to, work on your resource. Maybe you need to relocate. Maybe you need to be in a better place where you can get around or carpool or, um, et cetera, et cetera. I am hearing more about remote jobs, and things like that. And I do think that factory jobs are about to be on the chopping block. We're not done with that South Node in Virgo. So the way the job market works is very quickly changing. And if you think it is quickly changing now, it is going to start getting even quicker by the end of April. Um, so you better believe that whatever jobs are available now are not probably going to be available very soon, very soon. Have a backup plan, have a contingency plan, have a resource plan. Um, all of those things, so that you have a resource for food, so that you have a resource for carpooling. How might this affect public transportation? I think we'll see changes to public transportation, and I think initially we won't like them, but I think that it'll take a minute to balance out. Like as with anything else, there may be a transitional process that we have to go through. I mean, Uranus is moving into Gemini, which is neighborhoods, communities. Pluto's in Aquarius, which is communities. Um, we may have to get more social and ask for people to give us rides if we need them, which could really change the ball game because not everybody's going to want everybody in their car. Um, but you may have to get social. I mean, that's part of this shift is that we have to ask for what we need and we need to be more of an advocate, but also more of a don't expect a service provider to offer it versus um asking your neighbor to help you get to the store, your doctor, the pharmacy, whatever it is you need to do. Carpooling, because fuel prices aren't going to go down, I don't think, anytime soon, just from what I'm getting from other mundane astrologers. I don't do mundane astrology. I don't like to track that much astrology um in different countries' charts and things like that. I like personal stuff. But I do feel like with this full moon, we could start to see some changes in our resources. As Venus moves through Taurus, we could see changes in our resources, and that includes and is pending, dependent on fuel cost. Because if truckers can't fuel the truck, we don't get our deliveries. It is that simple. I have said it since 2020. There are three groups of people you cannot piss off: truckers, laborers, and farmers, because those people supply everything else that we all live on. They supply your Amazon orders, your I'm currently waiting for a FedEx package of which the delivery date has now changed three times. Um, farmers grow crops, farmers grow animals, they breed animals. Therefore, we have meat and we have, farmers, they also provide soybeans and wheat that make other things like pasta. Um, laborers, laborers work in factories that make various parts for various things. And if those jobs don't exist, we actually, I think this is going to be a very interesting time because there's part of it that, yes, we can do without the laborers because we can have robots do the work. However, where does that leave the factory workers? Um, so, which could be good, right? In some ways. because people can go do something else and actually enjoy their life. How do they get paid? That's the next thing that will start shifting is the money system. So lots of things, but I would just be in this moment um, really conscientious of your resources and your network and who's helping you and who's checking in on you and who your real friends are. Um, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, in general, I kind of like this chart because it's kind of like, the full moon in Libra is kind of there to remind us like, hey, you cannot do this shit by yourself. We're not meant to do this shit by ourselves. Um, you need other people. The risk of the fire horse energy and the Aries energy is trampling on others to get where you need to get versus including others to have them support you. Now, that also means you got to be a little less selfish and a little less self-centered. And, not everybody's there. I get that. Really, I get that. Um, but that's part of this process is getting yourself around people who can and will support you when it's necessary for you to be supported. So I also see a lot of femininity in this chart, and I feel like we're going to start to see some shifts with women, not necessarily in the feminism or women's lib or that's all political. I'm thinking completely separately. I'm feeling more women healing themselves, women acknowledging their power, potentially as, intuits and psychics and things like that. Um, yeah. So I see those kinds of shifts potentially coming, if not already in practice. So anyway, that's the chart. If you got planets or points around the middle of, so like 11, 12, 13, 14, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 degrees of the cardinal signs. Of course, this will be a square to you, so it could cause some tension. However, if you have planets or points around 10 through 14 of the air signs, this is a trine. So it could be really beneficial for you. Um, if you have a strong Venus placement, this could really be healthy for you to examine your resources or be a resource for someone else. Let's not forget that, sometimes we want the village, but we got to be a villager too. So, anyway, let's. All right. We're going to pull some oracle cards really quick and we're going to call it a week. Um, my phone is in the other room. So I need a magnifier on my iPad. There it is. Okay. I'm going to use the camera on my iPad to read cards. So I just have an Oracle deck today because I kind of have a time crunch to get this video done for y'all. But I want to fulfill this promise so that I get these videos for you for these new and full moons. So we will not do tarot this week. We will do Oracle, but this is the ancient gods and heroes or something Oracle deck. I love this deck a lot. So I thought it would be a fun one to do. Mhm. All right. Let's see if I can read it with my iPhone, with my iPad camera. That's going to be the fun part. Okay. And we got the warrior, no doubt. Aries is a lot of warrior-esque energy. I'm going to try and zoom this in a little bit more and see if that helps. Um, be fearless and stand strong. Yeah, be fearless and stand strong. Um, you're gonna have to use this Aries energy for a little bit of momentum here, even if you're tired, even if you're mentally had it. Like I get it. We've all kind of mentally had it. So I completely get it, no denying it. However, you're gonna need to use this Aries energy because this is the one of the only stretches of all planets direct until May 6th. We will have the rest of this year. I don't think there's any other time. Probably not. This is the only stretch of planets direct. All planets are direct. The only the until May 6th, we got all planets direct, all the personal planets, all the outer planets, everything's direct. So you're gonna need to use this energy whether you like it or not. So, kind of gonna have to find it in you to get disciplined, to really use this energy to set the tone for the rest of 2026. Um, we also, this is interesting, autumn. Um, release the old and release the old and rest. I agree with the release the old part. I mean, it's autumn. There's gonna have to be leaves and branches on the tree of you that you're gonna have to be freaking done with. Again, if you're continuing to talk about your childhood and how you were raised and, blah, 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 we get it. Okay, sorry, but we get it because we've all been through it, mostly Gen X, we all get it. If you're in your 30s and your 40s, even into your 50s, we get it. We understand. However, we all need to be done with it because we all need to move forward. We all need to do our part to move forward. So if you were raised or around people in your childhood that didn't treat you kindly or didn't give you space to be self-expressed, but now you're in your 40s and we quit whining and complaining and do something different. Um, and I get it. I'm a little scared of what I'm up against too, but I'm also willing to be the warrior and do what I'm here to do. So even if I'm scared, if that means that I have to affirmation write every day to remind myself who I am and who I'm here to be, that is what I'm going to do. And that is what I'm going to invite you to do too, is sit down every day and write down, who the hell are you? Are you the child who couldn't, do what you wanted to do, play with the toy you wanted to play with, play video games, listen to Metallica, was that your situation? Because now you can listen to Metallica and nobody gives a shit. In fact, people would probably celebrate you for listening to Metallica. Just saying. Anyway, so guys, I hope this was helpful. Please take extra good care of yourself, but also use this energy between now and May 6th to really move things forward. Stop looking back and saying that the people that I was, my parents did this and I had, stop it. Just stop it. Move forward. You have an opportunity to like yourself, care about yourself, love yourself, be yourself, express yourself. Go do it. I promise you, there ain't nothing the internet hasn't seen at this point. And you don't even have to post it on the internet. You can just put it in your journal. Nobody has to know. So I hope that's helpful. Enjoy this full moon because the Aries new moon on the 17th will be a completely different energy altogether. So enjoy it. Enjoy this Aries season, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Take care.